Welcome to Human Powered, the podcast about creating a high-performing agency or consultancy business. I'm Trenton Moss, and today I have Sam Gregory, co-CEO at Tangerine. Sam, hello.
Hi, Trenton.
So Tangerine is a PR and social agency, and you, Sam, have been co-CEO of the business for around 13, 14 years. And it's a £10 million business with about 110 team members. Sam, how do you define high performing within the context of Tangerine?
So I think for us, it's defined best in our values. We've always been a values-driven business. We were founded coming on for 23 years ago now. And from the very beginning, our founder, Sandy, established our values of honesty, courtesy and respect right from the beginning. And that was really important to her in terms of how she wanted to run the business. And then when I joined 10 years later, I found that so appealing, the values that she'd set in place, the kind of agency that she'd created and the values it was based on. It meant so much to the business, to the culture, and to me as somebody joining the business. And then over the years, as Mary, co-CEO, my business partner, joined, we both saw the value in values and the difference that they made to a business and just how important they were at setting the tone and really showing everybody who you work with what kind of agency you want to be, where you want to go. Relatively recently, we changed our values. We updated those values to be a little bit more reflective of the agency that we were at that time and the agency that we were aspiring to be. Honesty, courtesy and respect then evolved into entrepreneurial spirit, which is so important to us in terms of where we want to take the business and just the ambition, I suppose, that we have for the kind of work that we do, the people that we work with, the clients that we work with. It's just been a really important part of who we are. Courageous thinking, again, that really reflected the boldness in which we wanted to approach our work, the innovation that we wanted to see with what we were doing, and the difference that we were making to the industry and communications as a whole. And then honest counsel and collaboration. And that honesty, actually, that's been with us right from the beginning in terms of our values was just so important to us. You don't know where you are if people aren't being honest, both in terms of your colleagues and also clients. It's just a really important part of who we are. And then doing the right thing, that was the final value that we just thought was so important to us. And you can apply that in so many different ways. And that's not about trying to be overly ethical in everything that we do, although we are ethical, but it's about making the right decisions and feeling like we've stayed true to all of our other values when we're making decisions. So for us, those things and what they embody are really how we measure what high performing is within our business. So yeah, it's those things have been really important to us and we hope very important to everybody within the business.
I really like those values, and you can split them into two different groups. You've got entrepreneurial spirit and courageous thinking, which is how you want the team to drive things forward in a courageous and entrepreneurial way. And then the other two are like, well, we want you to do that. And at the same time, we want you to be honest, to collaborate and to do the right thing with each other.
Yes, that's so true. And it's a real reflection, I think, of our leadership style as well and really what we want to see reflected throughout the business. We're very ambitious, but not ambitious to a fault. We're ambitious, we're competitive, but we're doing it with a goal in mind, with a vision in mind, which is to try and address some of the misunderstandings that have been around within the comms industry about the value of PR, in particular, the value of social media within the marketing mix. I've long believed that the earned side of the mix is the area that's more strategic, that can deliver most value for brands, can make the most difference, can have that influence. And for us, showing how PR and more latterly, in terms of my tenure here anyway, social can deliver that difference for brands has been a huge part of our focus. So showing that through our innovation, showing that through our strategic work and how we really understand how our clients' businesses work and how what we do makes a genuine difference to that business, both financially, but in terms of business performance as well. And that's down to a number of different aspects of what we do. Strategy, as I mentioned, being one of them, creativity being another big one, and how we can use creativity to help brands really stand out. And if we're going to deliver that, our people have to get behind that and they have to really buy into it. And I think I can confidently say that all of our people really do understand that and they love it. They don't come to Tangerine because they want to do run-of-the-mill work. They come to Tangerine because they want to do bold, brave, creative stuff that's going to help their clients really stand out and differentiate for the right reasons. It's going to help them influence the people they need to influence, whether that's buyers or other people they're working with. It's really at the core of our DNA, but it's all rooted in insight and strategy. So it's got the rigor behind it. And yeah, it's that real balance of probably both sides of a coin or your brain or however you might want to put it. But it works really well for us.
Tell me a bit about what's it like for you when you see team members being bold, being brave, being creative, and being true to these values?
Well, I mean, it means everything to us. We see it day in, day out, with the work that our teams are creating. It could come through in just going to meet a client and speaking to them about, a particular project that they have in mind, for example. And then actually, when you continue on the conversation and you see, and I see it all of the time with colleagues when I go to meetings, where they are so invested and interested in the client and what the client's challenges are, that yes, of course, they'll listen to the brief that they're getting, but they'll also ask really probing questions. They're genuinely curious to know what the challenges are that our clients are facing, and often will walk out of that room with a completely different brief, because actually, what the client thought they wanted wasn't actually what they needed. What they needed was something different. But because we have that level of curiosity, of that level of really wanting to understand the business reasons why our clients are using our services, it makes a really big difference to what we can do for them, what we can offer them. And that understanding then allows our people to be more creative with the solutions that they're coming back with. And because they're looking at things from a strategic point of view, they're also then able to come back with a response which is, it's bold, it's creative, but it's based on something that's got rigor to it and it makes sense from a business perspective. So when they go and sell that into the client says, right, well, this is pushing boundaries, this is taking me out of my comfort zone, but actually I can see why you're doing it, I can understand the business benefit, and I can understand where this has come from and what it's going to do for my business. So that measurement piece is really important too. So I think we've got such a broad range of skill sets across the business that everybody in their individual areas is pushing boundaries, is innovating, is being creative, just in different ways that are relevant to their role within the business. So whether you're client services or whether you're in our innovation and measurement team, or whether you're in our creative team or client service, it's everybody has their role to play in making that difference and creating an experience that our clients have when they work with us that is different from what they would normally get with other agencies.
So tell me, okay, you've got these values that you're clearly super, super passionate about, that for you is setting the tone of the business, defines how you create high-performing teams. And you've got a team that you're saying like really buy into this and are delivering perhaps slightly differently to other agencies as a result. How do you do that? How do you go from defining these values to embedding them and making sure that everyone across your entire business is being true to them?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, and it really changes as the business grows as well. So I think when we first developed these values, we were probably about 50 people. So it was very different launching these values and embedding them when the business was that size compared with where we are now with 110 people. So there are different tools and techniques that we found worked really well for us. So in our case, we have quite a few opportunities, touch points with our people. Internal comms is really, really important to us, not least because we want to embed these values and we want them to be brought to life. But it's important to us. It's important to us to have a real dialogue actually with everybody across the business. It's what we've always seen as incredibly important to run the kind of sustainable business that we do, to create career opportunities for people. But it's also a key part of being an employee-owned business as well. For us, there's a number of kind of set-piece meetings, gatherings that we have throughout the year. So we have an AGM, which sounds quite boring, but it's just quite a big set-piece event that is actually a really, really fun opportunity for us all to get together and talk about who we are as a business, the incredible work that we're doing. So that's always a really important example of when we can show our values, bring our values to life and make sure everybody's bought into them. But there are other ways in which we do that as well. So we've created a booklet which has worked incredibly well. And every time I spot it and pick it up, I get a bit of a tingle. I love it. It's genuinely, when I open it up, it's genuinely articulating exactly what the core, the DNA of our business is. And that's a fantastic way to convey all of those values, but also some of the other aspects of Tangerine life and what it's like to work here. And it really helps to set the tone for how we want everybody to experience working at Tangerine, and equally what they can do as well, like their part in the bargain. It's not just about us setting all of these values. Of course, everybody's got to buy into them and live them. It's up to us to show them ways in which they can do that. We can't possibly set out every scenario, but we would hope that they could look at the information we're giving them and go, you know what, I'm buying into this. This makes sense to me. This is my kind of place. And I'm going to run with this because it speaks to me and what I want from my career and my life. And that's really important to us. But in addition to that, we've got lots of other opportunities. We've got branding all over the office and lots of different ways in which we can just show how we're bringing those values to life in the things that we are doing, whether it's through our training programs or other events that we're running. It's just every opportunity we get our values front and centre.
What happens when one of your team members isn't being true to the values?
Yeah, it's always a difficult one. I think, so first of all, recruitment is really important. The recruitment process is really important. In fact, even before you start on the recruitment process, your employer brand is really important. So you need to, as any business, not just an agency, you need to be really clear about what you stand for and what you're about in your comms. So if you start there, then hopefully you're attracting the right kind of talent and the right kind of people to your agency, and people that share your mindset and share your vision for where you want to take your business. And then the recruitment process is really important. And that's an opportunity, as the old saying goes, you're interviewing both ways, they're interviewing you as much as you're interviewing them. But being really clear at that point and setting the expectations as well as the benefits, and reinforcing those values and what they mean and what everybody should be sticking to. But of course, from time to time, there are going to be issues, or there are going to be people that don't always stick to the values. And what's really important is just having conversations with people straight away, just nip it in the bud. And what's great about it is that because you've got your values set out and because you're very clear about what they mean and why they're important, when you find that somebody is just not quite, sticking to those, you can really easily sit them down and go, look, you know what we're about. These are all the things that are important to us. What's gone wrong? Let's talk about it. What's behind this? And, usually you find that there's a big backstory and there's something that's very fixable, and, whether it's training required or, just a bit more of a mentorship or whatever it might be, there's always a way around it. It does sometimes happen with clients as well. So it's not just about employees. And that's something where we've had to make some difficult decisions in the past about whether this client partnership is right for us. And we've had to make some, commercially difficult decisions. But honestly, whenever we've been faced with a decision that where something or someone or there's just a partnership that doesn't feel right, we know that if it doesn't feel right, it's not going to work out. And we have tried it. We've not always been whiter than white and stuck to the values. sometimes we've gone, well, maybe this is, it doesn't feel quite right, but perhaps there's, perhaps we should try and because there's always an element of risk in business, and that's what it's all about. But every time we've regretted it, I would say. So sticking to those values is really important to us. Yeah.
It's almost like the 10 commandments for Tangerine is this set of values.
Yes, absolutely. They really are. What they are may change over time in terms of the words we use to express it. And they will evolve. There's no doubt about that. But what they stand for and what our business stands for won't change, because that's in the day of Mary and I and how we want to run the business.
So you've got your values, and that underpins everything that you're doing day to day. What about kind of bigger picture, longer term? How do you align everyone around that kind of strategic vision and make sure you're all being true to the values whilst heading in the same direction?
I would say that's all in the business plan. I'm a big planner. I'm a strategist at heart, and I like to know, where we're going and how we're going to get there. And I'd like to do it in the most succinct way possible, because I don't enjoy huge reams of documents and so on. But I do like to know where we're going. And having a really clear vision as a business is so important. It is number one thing on your list when you are putting in place a really solid business plan. I think it helps with us because we've got a wrong that we're trying to right in terms of the value that's put on what we do as an agency. And I don't mean that as in just Tangerine, but I mean as in all PR and social agencies, and probably comms agencies more broadly speaking than that. It's vital that what we do is seen as incredibly valuable to a business, that we're paid appropriately to deliver the services that we deliver, and that we are given the recognition that we should be getting in terms of the success of our clients' business and the success of the brands that they have. So for us, that's a very, very clear vision. So how do we get there? How do we do that? Well, we need to make sure that we're innovative and that we are at the cutting edge of our craft, and that we are going above and beyond in terms of the delivery of that we are pushing creative boundaries, that we're pushing our clients out of their comfort zone. So if we can do all of that and grow, because growing is obviously an important part of sustainably successful business. We've seen growth, significant growth over the past few years, sometimes during very difficult times, actually, which has surprised us all. But that has always come from this vision to be better, to want to do things better, and to push ourselves. It gives us an enormous sense of achievement and pride. And then the growth happens as part of that, which is a lovely side effect. But it's not luck. We do always have a plan. So if we've got this vision, we've got this idea of where we want to go, and then we develop a really solid plan of how we're going to get there. And we've got a really, really great team behind us who buy into that, who work with us to develop that plan. So, years and years ago, it would have been Mary and I and, the rest of the board, putting this thing together and driving it forward. And now, as we've got bigger to the size we are now, it's Mary and I setting the vision and setting out the plan, overarching plan. But then we've got an absolutely brilliant team who are there taking that to the next stage. So we've got our leaders of our different departments and teams are the ones that are bringing it to life a little bit more, and then they share it with their teams and bring it to life a little bit more, and everybody is part of the development of the plan and the process, and I'm really bought into it as a result. And we obviously have a fantastic finance team that make sure we've got all the numbers right and look after things from an operational perspective. So it's that teamwork that is really, really central to that. But everybody understanding that vision and getting behind it is such an important part of the success of the business.
Okay, so you've got your values, which define day-to-day behaviour. You've got your bigger picture vision, which describe the direction that you're heading in. One other thing that you mentioned earlier is you're an employee-owned business. Tell me a bit more about how that helps you to be successful in both of those things I said.
So we became employee owned, I think it was about 7 years ago now, maybe even 8 years ago now. So at the time we were the first agency to become employee owned. There are quite a few actually that followed suit. And I think really at the time, the reason why we went down that route was because it just felt so right for us as a business. There are obviously a number of different ways that owners can exit. And we looked at all of the different options. And for us, it was the only one that really made sense and felt right. So Mary and I are minor shareholders within the business still. And we were at that point. But even for us, we just like any other option just doesn't feel like it fits with our values and with our mission, with our vision. We were really just felt like we were getting started at that point. And we really believed that Tangerine had such potential to go even further than we were at that point, to really grow into an independent agency that could make a difference to our sector, and both in terms of the innovation, the work, the way we do what we do, with the way we do our craft, but also creating career opportunities for the people coming into the sector, and just, more broadly, how brands and businesses view and value what we do. So for us, the idea of not being, not having the people within the business drive that forward and realize that vision just didn't feel like it could work. So it was definitely the right decision for us. And there are lots of things that you have to do as an EOT. So you have to, there are lots of rules and regulations about, involving everybody within the business in certain decisions and being very transparent about numbers and financials and things like that. We'd always done all of those things. We'd always been really transparent with people. We'd always involved everyone in big business decisions. We wanted everybody to be part of that. So again, it just felt completely natural. And I've had lots of people over the years say, what did you have to do differently? And well, not really much. It was broadly what we were doing anyway. We had to rename a few things. There was a few admin things that needed to be done. But generally speaking, it was how we were already running our business, which was great. And there are so many perks that our people get off the back of it as well. So there's a profit share, which is tax-free up to a certain amount, which is lovely, which obviously you can't offer outside of an EOT. We're very, very transparent about the business plan, the numbers and so on, which I think everybody's interested in seeing. Some people more than others. Some people really see it as almost like a mini business training session. When we get the opportunity to go through the numbers in a bit more detail, they love it. It really gives them an insight into how businesses are run and what good looks like, and the decision making that we have to go through and the things that we need to consider just running the business day to day. So it really gives people that opportunity to be part of something quite special. We have a number of different check-ins with people, obviously, throughout the year, but certainly with new people, one of the board sits down with them when they're 3 months in, and almost unanimously we get really, really positive feedback about the EOT and what it's like to be part of one. It's really great. It works very, very well for us.
So something that I think is quite interesting about Tangerine is that you've been employing apprentices for quite a few years now. Tell me a bit about what you see as the benefits of doing that.
The idea behind it when we started it was around the time when we were recognising the importance of social media, essentially, and we were trying to recruit people to come in and help us to deliver the offer that we'd created. And we found actually that it was really hard to find anybody that understood how to use social media in a commercial context. So there were lots of people who were adopting social media and using it, day to day. But when it came to actually delivering a campaign or understanding how to innovate and use the technology, and from a business perspective, there was very little skill set out there. So that's why we launched the Juice Academy, was actually to help train young people to develop the skill set that we could see the industry sorely needed or was about to really need, as well as ourselves. So that's where the sort of germ of the idea started. And then we also recognised that there was a need to create opportunities, equal opportunities really, for young people to have access into the industry. from all backgrounds, which is something that, again, we weren't necessarily seeing. It was a brilliant move, really, for us. And to date, it's well over 700 young people that have gone through that apprenticeship scheme, which is fantastic. And all the way along, we've employed apprentices through the initiative, through the scheme. And we've just seen some incredible talent come through. And one of which still works within the business. He's just flown through over the years and been incredibly successful. He's now very senior in our Intel team. And he's not the only one, actually. Somebody else left just last year to take on an in-house role. And she'd been with the business, again, just about 10 years. And she'd absolutely flown in client services. And she left an account director. She was absolutely brilliant. It's been a wonderful thing to be part of. We've seen some incredible talent come through the business. But it's also provided an opportunity for our people to get involved in tutoring. And that is something I think everybody who's been involved with that has valued enormously. And I think it's helped keep us at the cutting edge. If we're having to teach it, then, we're having to be absolutely just right at the cutting edge of innovation and new emerging technologies and understanding how to use them, and just being inspired by these fantastic young people who just look at things in a completely different way. Hugely inspirational and great to see that talent come.
So there's so many wonderful things that you're doing. And last year you were part of Campaign's top 100 best places to work. So Sam, tell me, for people who are listening to this thinking, okay, I want some of this. I want to get my business into Campaign's top 100 places. If you could give 3 recommendations for creating that high-performing team, that really brilliant place to work, to help me get my business into that, what would those 3 recommendations be?
Okay, let me boil it down. So I would say, in terms of creating an environment where people and ideas can flourish is so important. Creating an environment where careers are nurtured and developed is really important. So if you can do that and demonstrate how you're doing it and measure how you're doing it, I think that is incredibly important. And as part of that, thinking about DE&I, thinking about accessibility, and thinking about how you can bring in talent from every different type of background is so important. It's better for your business, it's better for the industry, and it's definitely one of the top 3 things that we do that I think contributed to that success. Looking for ways in which we can help everybody to develop and grow is one of the things that is really incredibly important to us as a business. I think also creating a Tangerine experience that people can really touch, it feels really tangible to them. And that does come in the form of benefits and perks and rewards, and, how we can help people genuinely feel valued for what they're doing and what they're bringing, and looking after people, as much as you can do. So thinking about, what remuneration, doing salary benchmarking is really important, but also looking at softer perks, things that you can do around the office to make people's lives just that little bit easier. We've developed a training program, which is really important to us, homegrown, which covers off a whole range of different topics and areas for development, but it also covers off just general life help. So if you need help on, how to manage your finances, or how to get a mortgage, or all of these other things that we all have to tackle at some moment in our lives, we provide training on that and, give people access to experts. We help them with their own health and mental health. We have done things like, putting on lunches and providing food for people, and, just making life as much as, as easy as possible, but also as fun as possible as well, because work should be fun. It shouldn't feel too much like hard work. And, we recognize that the relationships that people develop in the office, like, these people need to be your friends as well as your workmates. And we want to create an environment that encourages that. And, that's really important to us. I would say the accessibility and career development, the training and development is really important. and then the broader perks that you offer as well. I think they'd be the top three.
So if you're listening, that's what you need to do to get into that campaign top 100 best places to work. Sam, you've shared so many wonderful things today. I feel like I've learned so much and got so many ideas for things. Let's look to the future a bit. Tell me a bit more about what's next for you and what's next for Tangerine.
Well, a lot of more of the same in terms of our innovation and growth. For us right now, looking ahead to how we measure is really important, how we show value. There's an awful lot of technology that's coming out at the moment, which is really helping us to advance that. And also thinking about attention. This is a word that we're seeing a lot more of at the moment. How we get attention, how we retain attention, how we measure attention. These are big areas for us that we're investing into. We're going to continue to grow. That's very important for us, and just enhance our offer, carrying on doing what we're really, really good at, and looking for ways to just continue to do the great work that we are doing, continue to be more creative and push more boundaries. We love what we're doing. We want to do more of it. We don't necessarily need to grow quite at the rate that we have been every year, but it's been fantastic. I mean, we've got some great clients. It's just about how we can keep pushing boundaries, keep moving forward, keep looking for opportunities to make the industry as fair as possible and also as valued as possible. So it's an exciting time.
Brilliant. Well, I'd be sure to keep an eye on you and to see how you're going to continue to build the business moving forward. Sam, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been so lovely to listen to your stories and all the things that you're doing at Tangerine. Thank you.
Thanks, Trenton.
You've been listening to Human Powered, the podcast all about creating a high-performing agency or consultancy business. Thanks for tuning in.